Greetings folks, Steve here, and tonight I got old Goldie in the garage. She's going to be sitting here for a while because we got some big changes coming to the Z's program. Among these big changes is going to be replacing the engine. Our old L28et is going to be sold to fund the next engine that's going to go into the car. So there's a lot of expense involved in swapping an engine, and so I don't really need the engine for anything at this point. I'm going to hopefully find a worthy Z enthusiast who wants it for their S30 or their S130 to swap in and, you know, have a 430 horsepower Z engine that they can go ahead and enjoy. So anyway, I'm going to be selling to someone and hopefully let the nostalgia of the old L series live on. This is a pretty good example in my opinion, but I'm actually here to prove that since I'm selling this engine, and I have gotten quite a bit of interest since I threw it up on Facebook, that it's going to be coming up for sale. I do want to just on video on the channel go through just a basic engine health, state of health check is what I'm doing here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to pull the spark plugs, take a quick look at them. We're going to get compression readings, just cranking compression, and I'm going to hook up an oil pressure gauge to it to get a oil pressure reading. Everything's out in the open. I have nothing to hide here. You guys know what I do with this engine, and the people who are prospective buyers also know that this engine was pushed hard, was leaned on a lot, a lot of boost ran through it, and it just is what it is. But I think I know what the engine's worth, and I'm hoping to get that. But for all intents and purposes, one, to kind of preserve my reputation. I don't want anyone thinking I'm a hack or ripping anyone off. But also just, I think it's going to help be a good selling point. And we're going to learn a lot about what the L series can really handle, because here's a secret for you guys who've been following. I've never done a compression check on this engine. I have no idea what to expect. General rule of thumb with static compression or cranking compression tests, you want to see is equal compression throughout the cylinders. So anything within 5% of the average of the cylinders is considered good. Anything inside 10% is considered okay. So as long as each cylinder is within 10% of the average of all the cylinders compression, then that is a good healthy engine, generally speaking. And that's good enough. That's good enough, you know, like if that's a healthy engine. There's obviously not like a burnt valve or a bent valve or a cracked piston in that case. Like more than likely you're dealing with a good engine. And yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and just jump right into this. I've cracked all the spark plugs loose. Let's take a look at the plugs that come out of it. All right, plug number one. Number one, nice and clean. I gapped these things to about 18 thousandths because I don't like to play around, and it runs pretty good. But you can really tell by how you have a little bit of a black ring around the base of the threads there, but it's not black up the ground strap. Tells you that you got pretty good timing. Decent fielding. The ceramic is all very clean. Now I run E85, so that's a little bit of trickery here. You're probably gonna have cleaner plugs when you're on E85, but to not see any soot or oil buildup garbage on that electrode is good. These plugs are not super old, but I've definitely had at least 4 or 5 like full-on track days with them. So that's number one. It looks fine. Number two, same. We want to make sure we don't see any like bites off the ground strap indicating like super aggressive timing or anything like that, but that one looks very much the same. If you had like bad piston rings or a cracked piston or ringland or something like that, you'd expect to see a lot of just black buildup. If you had a bad head gasket, you'd expect to see a lot of deposits, just like kind of like mineral looking. It's not mineral, but that's how I describe it. Like how you'd see like the white scale on the end of your kitchen sink. You know, you would just see a lot of like that kind of scaly deposits would indicate a coolant leak. I do run antifreeze in this car. I've never been a full water cooling system. I park my cars in the freezing, so I prefer not to use full water. When you use water as coolant, you can conceal problems like that. You won't see the buildup on the spark plugs quite the same. All right, here's cylinder number 4. Very much the same. Another reason I don't like running water for coolant is if you have a small leak that evaporates on a hot engine, you might run low on coolant or on water before you know you have a leak. All right, here's number 5. all the same. And number 6. And they all look excellent. So I don't expect we'll have any problem here. This car runs like a scolded ape. Good enough to break the freaking band in our jack coat for the 500th time. So I really have very little concern about what we're gonna find here. But now that we got all the plugs out, we'll go ahead and hook up our compression tester and jump power to the starter and see if we can get some good compression readings here. All right, number 1, here we go. Basically just gonna go until it stops rising. So right there we got about 100 and nearly 120 on cylinder number 1. All right, on to the next one. We're hooked up, cylinder number 2. Ooh, our battery sounds kind of weak. Well, a weak battery can affect these readings also, so let me go ahead and hook a charger up to this thing, make sure we got full battery voltage while we're doing our cranking test. All right, got the battery charger hooked up. Once again, number 2, let's go. Another 120, beautiful. Here we go, cylinder 3. A little over 120 for cylinder number 3. All right, cylinder number 4. Let's see if I can do this without making so many sparks. A little over 120 again. Cylinder number 4. All right, cylinder number 5. Now, the further you get back on the L series, the more likely you are to reach a cylinder that has experienced detonation. These engines are extra easy to detonate, to knock in. And the further you are away from the radiator, the more prevalent that knock's gonna be. So here's where the secrets hide. $120. All right, that's number 5. Last one, here we go. Oh, reached about 124. The other ones might have gotten a little better if I gave them a little more time, but that's cylinder number 6, 124. We got excellent compression. So that is quite suggestive there of a healthy engine, but I'm gonna go one step further and remove my oil pressure sensor down here and hook on an oil pressure gauge, throw the plugs back in and run the engine and just see if we can confirm good oil pressure. All right, we're gonna pull our oil pressure sensor. Let's plug in our gauge and see how the oil pressure looks. Got it plugged in to the port where the oil pressure switch goes. Got the ignition on already. Let's go ahead and start it up and see what kind of oil pressure it makes. All right, so we're sitting at about 50 PSI of oil pressure. That is on a cold start. I think that is a perfectly acceptable range for this thing. I think that alone is enough information to know that this is a reasonably healthy engine. There is one last thing I'm gonna do, just because this is something that is practiced pretty regularly at my shop whenever we deal with engine troubles. Vipers are pretty prone to engine failure. Spoiler alert, I know you 90s kids didn't want to hear that, but that's the truth. So what I like to do to get a good idea of what's going on inside an engine is cut open the oil filter. If you have a breakdown of a bearing or like a rod bearing or like a main bearing, any kind of breakdown in that type is going to be revealed in the oil filter. This filter has been on this car for about a year, since last season, and there's not gonna be anything to hide in here. And we can pull the element out, we can look at the element, we can pour out the oil that's in the filter, but none of that matters. What your telltale sign is gonna be is flakes of copper colored or any kind of metallic colored flakes in excess in the bottom of the oil filter once it's been cut open and the element removed. So I got a K&N filter on here. It's probably going to be a bear to get into. Let's cut that puppy open and see what's in it. All right, so you will see some specks. I do see some specks. That is typical. What we're looking for is an abundance of glitter. And you can see there's definitely some specks down there. A lot of that is just like carbon junk. I'll run a magnet down there and make sure none of it's ferrous. But what we're seeing down there is just kind of typical little specks of junk, dirt, and crap. Overall, not bad. Now, when you have an engine failure or an impending engine failure, it'll look like stripper glitter. And so I'm pretty satisfied with that. So I think I have done my due diligence to prove that this engine's in good working order. Greetings, folks. Steve here. Today we are at the shop at BSP. What we're working on tonight is pulling the engine out of Old Goldie. I got my coworker up here, Matthew, giving me a hand, tear this thing apart. And we're gonna get this thing loaded up on a pallet and ready to deliver to its new owner this weekend. So I did find someone who's interested in the engine. I'm selling it as a complete package. I don't have any purpose for any of this stuff. The ignition system, the throttle linkage, the turbo, like everything is going to him. And aside from like the intercooler and a couple of other little odds and ends. But we're gonna be pulling it out just as a whole big assembly, strapping it to a pallet, and I'll be delivering it to him this week. But that's what's going on today. So I'm gonna try to get a little time lapse of this, and once we get it all apart, get it loaded up in the truck and ready to head to Allen, I think, which is about 20 minutes away from here. All right, motor's out of the car, and for the first time ever, we can look at the Z's engine removed from the car. Never pulled it out before, never had to do anything to this engine besides just basic repair stuff. And this is gonna be our canvas for the 2JZ. We'll do a good cleanup in here, get rid of some of this gunk and grime before I go to drop the 2J into it, and that'll be an adventure for next time. But right now we're gonna get the hood back on the car, get it pushed to somewhere where it'll sit and wait until we're ready to drop the 2J in. All right, y'all, I am on the road now heading to Bedford, and you'll see behind me there in the bed of the truck is our L28et engine assembly. I'm going to meet up with a man called Joe who wants the engine. He made a deposit some time ago, and today is the day for the drop-off. So running it over to his place, I'm gonna drop it off there, and that will be the last we see of the L28.
We'll be open, we'll be open,